Herbert Schiller, in his critique of US media systems, argued that the media doesn't just inform, it constructs a reality that serves the interests of economic and political elites. This is done through the propagation of 5 core media myths, repeated narratives that disguise power and inequality as natural or normal. These myths are not lies in a simple sense. They are deep cultural assumptions that become invisible frameworks through which people interpret the world. Here's how they function. 1. The myth of individualism. What it claims, success or failure is entirely the result of individual effort. How it works, this myth ignores structural inequalities, e.g., class, race, gender, education access, and shifts all responsibility onto the individual. Media reinforces stories of self-made entrepreneurs, lone heroes, or exceptional people, while ignoring the systemic barriers most people face. Why it matters, it discourages collective action, social critique, and policy solutions. It creates the illusion that if someone fails, it's their fault, not the system's. 2. The myth of neutrality. What it claims, media is objective, balanced, and free from bias. How it works, news organizations and digital platforms claim to be neutral, but in reality, they operate under market pressures, ownership agendas, and ideological assumptions. Even choices about what not to report are political. Why it matters, this myth builds credibility for the system, while hiding its selective framing and structural biases. It creates trust, even when power is being protected. 3. The myth of the free market. What it claims, the market is the best way to organize society, efficient, fair, and natural. How it works, media normalizes the logic of privatization, competition, and consumer choice. Alternatives, like public services, collective ownership, or democratic planning, are presented as outdated, inefficient, or dangerous. Why it matters, this myth limits imagination. It equates capitalism with freedom, and makes economic inequality appear inevitable or unchangeable. 4. The myth of pluralism. What it claims, we have many voices, many choices, so the system must be fair. How it works, even if we have hundreds of channels or websites, most are owned by a few giant corporations. And most content follows narrow commercial formats and ideologies. Why it matters, this myth hides concentration of media ownership, giving the illusion of diversity. It pacifies audiences by making them believe they are well-informed and empowered. 5. The myth of the absence of social conflict. What it claims, society is mostly stable, unified, and peaceful, conflict is rare or extreme. How it works, media tends to downplay or frame inequality, racism, labor struggles, or protest movements as isolated incidents or threats to order, not symptoms of deeper structural problems. Why it matters, it delegitimizes dissent and protects the status quo. People are less likely to organize for change if they believe no change is needed. Conclusion: media as ideological infrastructure. For Schiller, these 5 myths are not just journalistic tendencies, they are ideological tools that produce what he called a packaged consciousness. They shape how people think, feel, and act, not through coercion, but through cultural consent. These myths naturalize inequality, neutralize resistance, and normalize corporate and state power. To think critically about media today, we must learn to see the myths that operate beneath the surface of the screen.